Kia ora everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're discussing the ski field where you can see to the ocean, Mount Hutt. Despite its relatively small size, Mount Hutt has a lot to unpack. In this video, we'll be discussing all that you need to know in order to maximize your day skiing Mount Hutt. Because we have so much to unpack, this episode is split into two parts, with this part discussing the upper mountain and part A discussing the lower half. So without any further ado, let's continue in Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Mount Hutt. Now, a resort can't be good at everything, so bear that in mind when I say that Mount Hutt's expert terrain is rather lacking. However, there are still a few solid options, all of which are accessed from the Summit 6, along with a good variety of other types of terrain. The Summit 6 is, of course, the busiest lift at Mount Hutt, and while it's typically not too bad, it can get significant Colorado-level lift queues on the worst days. At the top of the lift, 99% of traffic exits left. However, you can exit right, but it'll bring you to some steep, rocky off-piste that then leads down to Virgin Mile. It's challenging but not great skiing, hence why very few people go there. As you get going along the ridge, you'll see a traverse on your right. This is the traverse to Towers and South Face, the gate to which closes at 3. You can also hike up to the true summit to get some untouched powder turns, but I don't find that worth it for the short area you'll get access to. Now, at the end of this pretty lengthy traverse, you'll pass through a gate into an area dubbed Monty's Chute. If you keep going beyond this, you'll pass through another gate into South Face. South Face is, for the most part, just a steep open face. However, it does have some cliffs in the upper section in which you can find some wide open chutes. Looking from right to left, the 4 routes down are called First Chute, Main Chute, Saddle Face, and Jan's Face. First Chute and Main Chute are the most skied, and Jan's Face has the longest traverse back, so my favorite of these is Saddle Face. About 1/3 of the way down from First or Main, you can traverse skiers left to make it back to Mid Towers. From there, you can continue traversing so that you can make South Face a 1-lift lap. However, what I recommend doing is enjoying the full length and sustained fall line of the area to go all the way to the lower traverses, which will drop you into the ramp if you take the first traverse you see, or the Muesli Bowl if you go all the way down to the boundary. Do be careful not to miss the lower traverse, as the boundary isn't roped, but just has some spaced out signs. Now, if you drop in before the second gate into Monty's Chute, you'll find yourself in a super wide chute that maintains some pretty good snow. This is my favorite expert run at the resort. About 1/3 of the way down, you can traverse just a touch skiers left to access another wide chute. These two chutes are very skied off, but somehow still seem to maintain chalky snow. They're not the hardest runs in the world, so to any experienced skier who is confident, I would recommend trying one of these chutes at least once. The truly difficult terrain in Top Towers is in this area with all these big cliffs. This area has lots of tight chutes, sharks poking up everywhere, and not as good a snow quality. So if you're looking for a good challenge, heading here is a good option. To access the true top of Towers, as soon as you enter the first gate from the traverse, cut back skiers left along the rope. Some of these chutes have names, such as Chute 3 and Dogleg, but they honestly all kind of blend together, and you can scout each of them from above, so I don't find it critical to discuss each individual one here. Instead, just head along the rope and pick whichever chute suits your fancy. Of course, if you're not feeling the off-piste, you can take arguably the most iconic groomer in all of New Zealand, Fascination. Fascination is a super wide steep run going straight down the face of the mountain. And indeed, it is fun. Later on in the day, the skier's left side of the run gets significantly icier than the skier's right due to everyone cutting the corner from the ridge, so I would advise going to the far side of the run. Huirapa, formerly known as Huber's Run, is basically just an extension of Fascination. There's typically a groomed strip on the skier's left side that branches off and then widens out, becoming yet another awesome wide cruiser. They used to groom Huirapa all the way to the top, but at least in my experience, it doesn't seem like they do that anymore, so you'll have to do Fascination to get there. This run is sometimes used as a race course, however. If instead of turning onto Fascination you continue down the ridge, you'll be heading onto Morning Glory. It starts off as just a road, and not a wide one at that. It gets very congested, and as such, isn't my favorite. Wiley's Way goes around a bit, while Morning Glory goes straight down the face, becoming yet another awesome cruiser. Around the top of Towers, you have the option between Chair Bowl or Lower Fascination. I find Lower Fascination quite steep for a blue, at least for New Zealand standards. As such, for low intermediates, I would highly recommend Chair Bowl, which is a standard blue cruiser. It also has a road that goes around on this looker's left side, but that's primarily just for access to Mid Towers, more so than an alternate route down Chair Bowl. Speaking of which, you can, from that spot, enter Mid Towers, which is a super wide, nice face. The further you traverse, typically the better the snow quality. However, the further you head out, the higher the chance you'll be stuck taking the conveyor or Towers Mid Station to get back. Race Hill is basically an extension of Mid Towers, without an entrance traverse. It's not great because it's so easily accessible. There's also some solid off-piste between Morning Glory and Fascination, but this also typically doesn't have the greatest snow quality. Now, if you exit left and enter underneath the giant banner, you'll switch back a couple times before entering a long, groomed traverse. This is Virgin Mile. After passing the banner, the first turn will be to the right, which can catch some people off guard, so just be aware of that, as counterintuitive as it may seem. On the upper part, it gets quite icy and has a solid pitch. However, once it catches up to the boundary rope here, it gets extremely excruciatingly flat, and you will have to walk or skate. Virgin Mile is known for its views, so it's absolutely worth it at least once, if even just to see those incredible panoramic views. But if you were to try and lap it all day, I don't know, doesn't appeal to me because of that long flat stretch. Now, the terrain off Virgin Mile is extremely conditions dependent. It can be the best or worst skiing in the whole field, just depending. However, if it is good, this is some of the best off-piste in the resort. Freedive and Hydroslide both have some rocky areas at their entrances, but they can be avoided pretty easily. And beyond that, you're out in the open, on this great wide steep face. Freedive is split into two areas. While traversing Virgin Mile, the first you'll come across is High Dive. Then, there's a big rock on your right, and then beyond that is Low Dive. Sometimes High Dive will be groomed for a short section just down to Huirapa. Honestly, they can groom anything off Virgin Mile at any point, but from what I've found, Platter Splatter, which may just be the steepest groomer in all of New Zealand, is the only one groomed consistently. And when I say it's steep, I mean steep. However, it's a ton of fun, especially when the corduroy's fresh. If you head to it and find it a bit too intimidating for you, don't worry, as you can continue on down the ridge to No Dive. No Dive is just a road, but about 30 meters past Platter Splatter, the flatness ends and it actually moves along quite well. After its big curve, you can go off-piste to the left to another wide face. Reservoir Dogs isn't quite as steep as the other Virgin Mile off-piste zones, but its downside is that it requires a pretty significant traverse around the snowmaking pond there. So keep that in mind. They will sometimes groom Reservoir Dogs, and when it is groomed, it's one of the best groomers at the resort because it's so far out and under-skied. Back up No Dive, at this gate, you'll be presented with 3 different options. The skier's right option is just to descend through this big bowl, which is Bob's Knob. If you take a narrow traverse pretty much straight ahead, you'll be headed towards Bluffs, formerly known as Elephant, and if you hang left onto the uphill groomed road where you'll have to hike about 2 minutes to get to this next gate, you'll be headed in the direction of the Rakaia Saddle Chutes. The Rakaia area is the only true hiking terrain at Mount Hutt, but as I just said, it is an extremely short hike, and it is a very easy hike as well. Bob's Knob is a big funnel and typically doesn't have great snow. Bluffs is arguably the most technical terrain at Mount Hutt. It consists of a bunch of different chutes to pick from, but it gets very rocky and sharky. Once you exit your chute of choice, you have 2 options. You can continue down a nice off-piste face to the road and then walk a couple minutes back up to the base area. Or, you can sacrifice that lower area to traverse Hard Skier's right in order to make it back without having to walk. I typically opt for the latter. At the top of the Rakaia access hike will be another gate. If you're on skis, I would put them on here. If you're on a snowboard, I would continue to walk. There is a groomed path that takes you down the ridgeline, but it does have a few sections where skiers will need to skate or even sidestep up, and snowboarders will want to walk. Keep along this groomed path until you see a sign. It's a long way. Stick with it. From there, if you head down Skier's right, you'll go down Wizard or Goblin, which are nice big bowls, the general theme of the Rakaia chutes. They're not really chutes, just lots of bowls and open faces that are rarely tracked out. If you keep going straight, I've forgotten the name of it, but you'll end up down at the Rakaia Car Park. If you go more left, you'll be heading down Y Front, which requires a pretty significant traverse out. It's definitely not made for snowboarders. Do be careful coming down those front faces, as the bottom of the traverse, the ski area boundary, is not roped. Don't miss the traverse or you're no longer going to be having fun. As a whole, the Rakaia chutes are good for 1 lap just to experience the emptiness, but the bus only comes every 30-ish minutes, so it's only good for 1 in my opinion. If you're parked in the Rakaia car park, taking the chutes is a good option for the final run of the day, but beware that they close the top gate at 3:30. Well, that about wraps it up for Mount Hutt. Now go check out one of our other Insider's Guides, all about other resorts in New Zealand, North America, and Europe. As always, please put any questions down below. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.